Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by HAYVN, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello and welcome to another episode. It's actually our 101st episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. And I am excited to have with us today Shannon Malkin Daniels. Welcome, Shannon.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, especially just on the other side of 100. That's so exciting.
Well, you've been part of the celebration and getting us to some of these milestones this summer. So thank you for being part of that. And we'll dive into that in a second. For those of you who might not know, Shannon is a public speaking and authenticity coach. And I am very excited to kind of dive into what you do, who you help. But before we do that, if it's okay, I'd love to go back and say, have you been doing this for 30 years? Or when you were in school, when you were growing up, did you think I want to be a public speaking coach? Would you mind taking us back to sort of a few steps before getting to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. My journey was not a straight path. I didn't always know that this is what I wanted to be when I grew up. I actually think my love for being on the stage and being in front of people stemmed from me being put in dance when I was 6 years old. And I spent a good portion of my life, all the way from 6, all the way up through my college years, being on stages and dancing. So that really helped me to develop stage presence and not have that stage fright that a lot of people have when it comes to public speaking. And I actually originally went to school for aerospace and mechanical engineering.
I love it. Okay. We're going to connect some dots there for sure.
Yeah.
Aerospace and aerospace. What do you say?
Mechanical.
Aerospace. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I realized I had a hate-hate relationship with math. Math problems did not like to be solved on me, and I did not like to solve math problems. So I changed my major and went the word route. And after trying out a few different majors, ended up in liberal studies where I studied communication, marketing, and writing, and really fell in love with communication, especially interpersonal communication, which my college professors would be so angry with me to describe it this way. But I describe it as really the psychology of how and why we communicate the way we do, because interpersonal communication shapes the way we see ourselves, the way we see others, how we interact with the world around us, and a lot of other things. And so funny enough, when I went to get my master's in interpersonal communication, my management teacher said, "Have you thought about public speaking as a career?" And I said, "That's not a real job. You don't get paid to speak." And so I didn't think too much about it. And I went into the typical corporate life of climbing the ladder. And I spent most of my corporate life in marketing and sales positions, climbed the ladder, was in senior level positions at a very young age. And really, it was becoming burnt out in my career and finding that the ladder climbing wasn't for me that led me to leave my job and start a different path. And when I now say I'm a fully recovered sales and marketing executive, when I left that corporate life behind, I actually chased 2 dreams I had always had. One was to write and publish a book, which I did. And the other was to teach college. And I taught college at Iona University, previously Iona College when I was there, and Columbia University, where I taught communication and public speaking courses. And that was really what led to this. I had become a coach, a different type of coach. I was a health coach because I'm also certified as a holistic health coach. And as I was doing that, people kept coming to me, other entrepreneurs in the co-working space I was in at the time, and asking for help with their pitches and their presentations because they knew I taught public speaking and communication courses. And that's really how it happened. I kind of fell into it. I fell back in love with communications after a year of doing health coaching, just knew that this was where my love and my passion were. I got to coach and help people, which was always something that's been near and dear to my heart and brings me great fulfillment. But I get to do it in this vein of communication and helping people find their voice, build their confidence, and share their message with the world. And so it was a bit of a circuitous journey, but that's how I got here.
I can see the dots connecting. I mean, I feel like the health part brings the holistic in, the communications has come full circle. You got the coaching expertise alongside with the teaching. Like, love, I'm sure when people are in the middle of it, it never feels like, where is this going? But when you look back, right, like it makes great sense to connect those dots.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, tell us, was your book about public speaking? Was it fiction? Was it nonfiction? I always need to hear about more new books. What was your book about?
My book is really about self-care and mindset. And it's called Water Yourself because when you don't water a plant, it starts to wilt and wither and die. And when you don't water yourself, the same thing happens. And so the book is really an analogy to gardening and how we need to take care of and make time for ourselves. In other words, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, because when you don't, you get burnt out, you lose your way. And that's kind of where I was at that point in my life with everything. And so I wrote that book as I was going through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to get my health coaching certification. And it was just really something that was on my heart. And it was actually one of the catalysts to leave my corporate life, because as I was writing the book and doling out this advice, I was struggling with it. And I said, why am I struggling so hard to write this book? And it was because I wasn't following my own advice. And
I was about to say, did you write the book for yourself? We do for those what we need to do for ourselves, don't we?
Yeah. Originally,
amazing.
Yes. But now it's been read in 10 countries and I'm on a second edition. And it's just really about using that to help others now.
How exciting. Well, I feel like that still fits under this umbrella that you've brought to us in terms of communications, right? Like, whether it's in corporate or I know communications, as you've just mentioned, in colleges or universities looks very different, right? I mean, it's just this huge umbrella. I could make the argument as a former PR person that marketing comes under there and sales. Like, I feel like you've kind of covered a lot of that. What now are you focused on from a communications standpoint, right? There's still so much under that. You've mentioned, I just heard you say, find your voice, right? Get your confidence. Those things haven't even necessarily have anything to do with actually words, right? So can we dive a little more into, like, I loved it, the interpersonal, like how we communicate isn't just what's been written on a page or what somebody reads aloud, right? What's your approach, or how do you integrate that into your work, or how you explain to somebody how you work?
Yeah, well, really, I like to tell my story a bit around it, which is that when I came out of corporate and started my own business, I used public speaking as a way to build my brand, to build my business, to connect with potential customers. And I had had all this public speaking training. I was teaching it, and I still was not doing the right thing. I started in corporate at 19, and I was put in this very specific box because the industries I worked in were finance, healthcare, insurance. And so they're very regulated industries. And I had to speak and act a certain way, present myself a certain way, dress a certain way. And so when I came out, that was very ingrained in me. Even though I knew at my core that wasn't right, it's just how I had been programmed. So I was going out, I was presenting, people would come up to me and say, wow, you're an amazing presenter, one of the best presentations I've seen. But it wasn't allowing me to connect with people. It was because I wasn't being authentically me. I was sharing words and messages and educating people, but it just wasn't me. And finally, one day I just said, F it. This is who I am. I'm goofy. I'm weird. I talk with my hands too much. Sometimes I talk way too fast when I get excited, but that's who I am. And when I broke out of that box and just started being me, that's why I like to say I'm a fully recovered sales and marketing executive. That's when I
Right.
started connecting with people. That's when the magic started to happen. That's when my business started to grow and the referrals started to come in. That's when people started hiring me to speak. And so I like to take my experience and help people to break out of the boxes that they feel they're put in. So many public
Mm.
speaking coaches train on the theatrics of it, where to stand, how to move, projection, articulation, rate, all of those things, which I do focus on as well. But what I like to say is, I want to see who you are authentically. Let's have some conversations. Let me get to know you. And then let's polish who you are. And let's dig down and find out what's meaningful to you. What makes you different and unique? What is the message you want people to hear? If you were in your bedroom and could just say whatever you wanted and nobody was listening but you and four walls, what would you say? And then let's figure out how to get that message out to a wider audience in a way that is your message and your perspective, that is your story that you can share with others in an authentic and natural way. And that's really how I approach public speaking and communications is, who are you? What is your authentic voice? What is your story that you're trying to tell? And how do we bring all that together and polish it up so that you can get that out there and share it with confidence, whether you're in a boardroom or on a stage?
So good. I'm sitting here. Can you see my face? I'm like, okay, gotta ask about that. I need to ask about that. So you just addressed, I mean, I'm still processing all this goodness. You talk about, this isn't just, it can be the stage, it can be in work, it can be in a leadership role and right? Like this isn't just getting you ready for the TED Talk, right?
Right.
It really is helping you hone your story. Taking it back a second and getting to know somebody and their authenticity and how they are, how does that then translate into, let's say, the words that are coming out? I feel like there's several pieces of this, like the presentation and how you deliver. At what point do the words matter? How much is it people saying, I don't have a story to tell, and you bringing it out of them?
All the above. So I've heard, I don't have a story to tell, my message isn't important, or I've heard the complete opposite of, I have a story, but I can't figure out how the heck to tell it in a clear and concise way. And it's funny you ask, how much do the words matter? My newsletter and my posts today were literally about how much words matter and how we need to be careful with how we choose our words, because they can inspire and motivate, or they can tear someone down. They can create unity and prosperity, or they can create division and negativity, right? And given the climate of what's happening in our country and the world right now, I think it's so important to pay attention to the words that we use. That said, those words need to be authentic to you. A lot of people want to speak like someone else. They'll look to speakers and say, oh, I love this person or I love that person. I want to speak like them. You don't want to speak like them. You admire their speaking style. You need to speak like you. And so as we're figuring out the words to use, let me back up a second. We speak very differently than we think, read, and write. And a lot of people like to sit down and type out a speech word for word and then either memorize it or read it off the paper because they're worried about those words being just so. At the end of the day, the words don't need to be just so. It's the message and the meaning that matter. When you can get to the heart of conveying the message and the meaning across to your audience, you've done your job as a speaker. Of course, you want to avoid words that might offend people or upset people or create too much negativity around your message, but that comes into the finessing of it. And if you can let go of trying to write things out word for word and then memorize it or read it, then you're going to have a lot more freedom in the way you speak, and it's going to be more authentic and more natural. and who you are. And so that's a lot of what I work with people on as well, because people will come in and they'll read the speech because that's become a crutch. And I find them stumbling over the words a lot because, again, we read, write, and think differently than we speak. So it's like, if we just have to get this message across, what is your roadmap? What are those key points you're trying to convey? What is that message you want people to walk away with? Hit that. Exact words that you say in between to get there, they honestly don't matter a ton. It's more the intent.
I love this balance, careful balance that you're creating of, and I'm making my notes here, the message and the meeting that matter. So balancing the presentation and how you're delivering it and just being conscious on the bigger picture as opposed to getting caught up in all the details. Sounds like a message for living. Shannon, I want to sort of get into HAYVN in just a second, but I want to say, how do people best work with you? Is this a thing where you need to be in a group setting and you're getting feedback, or is this really private and personal where it's one-on-one and people have, your clients or the people you work with have homework? Is it one stop and you solve everybody's problems? You know, what does it look like to work with a speaking coach?
Yeah, it varies, honestly. So a lot of people will work with me one-on-one. Depending on what their needs are, we dive into different things. So if you're coming to me because you're working towards a TEDx, it's a very different story than if you're working on a presentation for work or for something else that you're doing. If you're trying to overcome fear and anxiety in public speaking, that looks different. I also work with people in small group settings, doing group coaching. I do that virtually. I have certain programs that I run. I actually have a program kicking off with my partner in storytelling, Jen Lederer, in September called Practical Storytelling. And it's a 6-week course where we limit it to 5 people and we take you through the program and teach you how to find your authentic voice and tell your story. So I have group programs that I do. I also do workshops and trainings. So I'll go into organizations that hire me to do larger group training and workshops. Just a couple weeks ago, I did a full day workshop for an organization, and they're having me come back and do 4 more in areas there where they want to dive a little deeper. So it really varies. There's a lot of different ways to work together. What I like to do is first find out what your specific need is, and then make a recommendation for you that works best for what kind of outcome, what your goals are, as well as what your budget is.
I love the authentic approach to get your authentic voice out. I want to visit back or sort of step back. And you mentioned Jen Lederer, and we talked in the previous podcast about your fantastic drop the mic night that was part of the 5-year celebration for HAYVN. And I feel like this ties into an amazing example of the HAYVN magic. Can you walk us through how this evolved? I mean, this didn't exist 6 months ago or maybe 8 months ago, right? So can you walk us through Drop the Mic Night and your collaboration with Jen?
Yeah, this Drop the Mic Night's actually been more than a year in the making. As I've been working with clients, especially people who are trying to build their speaker resume, get out there more, or overcome fear and anxiety in public speaking, I often get asked, is there a safe space you can recommend where I can go practice this in front of an audience? And I was always beholden to whatever was happening at the time or in the moment. Sometimes I could find something for them, sometimes not. I'm not a speaker agent, so I don't book people, but I would help clients find opportunities. And it really became the catalyst for this idea of I want to create something that gives aspiring speakers an opportunity. It's a little bigger than going to a Toastmasters meeting, but is not necessarily the huge step up to a Moth or a TEDx, right?
Right.
And I approached Felicia with the idea over a year ago, and she loved it. And then kind of put it on hold. It got put on the back burner for a while. And then Jen came to HAYVN and did cocktails and comedy night. And that's where we met, is through that event a little over a year ago. And then we started working together and doing some programs together. And I mentioned this to her and she's like, yes, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And then I brought it back to Felicia, and Felicia said, yes, 100%, let's make this happen. And that's really where it came from is, an idea is just an idea until someone buys into it and supports it and sees your vision and wants to get behind it. And I was lucky enough to have Felicia say yes, 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 and have Jen say yes, yes, yes. And then it all kind of came together from there with collaborators and supporters who also love the idea of giving these aspiring speakers an opportunity to get in front of a friendly and supportive audience. And it was super amazing that we got to do that on the HAYVN 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, it was magic. I mean, it was just magic to be there. It was magic to witness and to see. I got to stand behind Felicia and somebody leaned in. They're like, this was your dream. And she's like, I know, this was my dream. So it was truly amazing to bear witness to. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for your time. Before we go, what's the best place for people to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, if you're looking for me on socials, I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I spend the majority of my time on LinkedIn, though. So I'm Shannon Malkin Daniels on LinkedIn. And then Speak Success, that's spelled SPEAC, Success, on LinkedIn, as well as all those other platforms as well. And then on my website, speaksuccess.com.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time. I'm grinning ear to ear, getting excited about all the people you've worked with and will work with, bringing their authentic stories out. Maybe there's another Drop the Mic night in the future. So thank you for sharing your gift and your time with us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Nancy.
And that's another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. Thanks for joining. If you like what you hear, please share with others, give us a review, and make sure you're a subscriber.
Thanks for listening to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. HAYVN is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. HAYVN is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the HAYVN community online at hayvn.com. That's HAYVN.com. HAYVN Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.